Okay guys, in this video we're going to walk through the two-point constructed perspective. In this example we've got a small room with a door at the back, a window to the side, a couple of steps up to it. We have a plan drawing. It is rotated 30 degrees, so this is 30 degrees from horizontal, this one's 60 degrees. We have a picture plane passing through this right-hand corner, and then we have our elevation set up here with a horizon line at 5 feet above the floor, passing right through the eyes of our scale figure. And extending on, we've got a ground line. This is drawn at 1/8 inch equals a foot with an 8-foot door and a 8-foot tall or a window head of 8 feet and a window sill at 2 feet above the finished floor. So first thing that we always do in a constructed perspective is locate our vanishing points. And in a two-point situation, I'm going to take my big triangle, and we can see that that edge is in fact 30 degrees, so we keeping that exact same angle, we go from the station point and we extend a line. Oops, we want to make all these lines as light as we can at this point, because these are all construction lines. From the station point, we're going to bring a line all the way up so that it extends through the picture plane. And so we're going to come up here, we'll have to extend our picture plane a bit. There we go. So that we can find that spot right there. And then likewise, we'll do the same thing on the other side. We will keep that 60-degree angle from the station point. We'll bring that up to the picture plane, and from that point right there, we're going to project those down perfectly vertical from those intersections with the picture plane. We're going to bring those down all the way through the horizon line and past the ground plane. And where those vertical projections cross through the horizon line, those are going to be our vanishing points. So that will be our left vanishing point. And if we extend our horizon line a bit through the title block of this page to find that intersection, that is going to be our right vanishing point. Okay. Vanishing points established. Let's now begin to describe the overall space here, the overall cube, and then we'll move through how we find the doors, windows, and stairs. So the picture plane passes through this point here. That is the only point at which we can measure vertical heights, and so all of our vertical heights are represented here in the elevation. So we can bring these lines over from the elevation, and we'll use those to translate heights. But we can, like I said, we can only do it at those picture plane levels. So that represents our roof height. This represents our ceiling. Let's go ahead and bring over the door and window head. Let's bring the window sill over the floor level, and our ground line. All of those are just construction lines at this point. Okay, so we have horizontal measurements. Now we need to find the verticals. Let me darken these up just a little bit so you can see them a little better. Okay, to find the verticals, it's just like the one-point construction perspective. Those angles and those lines can be defined by drawing a line through the station point to the piece of geometry in the floor plan, and wherever that crosses the picture plane, this corner that I've done first, the outside edge of that wall, happens to be on the picture plane. But we also want to define the interior corner of that wall. Let's do the same thing for the corners of the left wall. And we'll do the same thing for this very back corner. We don't need the interior. We won't deal with the interior quite yet. Let's just get the overall outside. So at each one of those spots where those lines cross the picture plane, which, keep in mind, I didn't draw these far enough. So when these, from the station point, we go through that point that we want, we have to send the line all the way to the picture plane. So we're trying to locate that intersection right there. And on this one, we'll have to extend it on up to the picture plane. So we're always hunting for intersections with the picture plane. So from those intersections, we bring all of those lines down perfectly vertical. This is where it really helps to have a parallel bar, or you can also tape down your T-square or another triangle that you may have as a constant vertical. So we bring all of those down vertically. We're just bringing them, and again, you're not coming from this point. I know these line up pretty close. You're not coming from this point, but you're using the intersections with the picture plane. Bring all those all the way down. And again with the intersection on the picture plane. Okay, so now we have verticals here. So we can use the intersections of these lines to connect those intersections to the vanishing points to begin to describe this form. So let's start with the lower edge where this is sitting on the ground. So if we find where that that outermost corner of the wall meets the ground line, right there, and we're using this because it is where the picture plane intersects our geometry. So that line right there, we can call it the true height line. That is the only point at which we can measure vertical heights in this drawing. So at that point, we know our building rests on the ground there, and from it, we can then connect a line through the right vanishing point. If it begins there, passes through that dot, and comes to this line, which happens to be the projection of the inside face of that wall. We actually need to go to the next one, which didn't quite bring it down far enough. So let's just extend that a bit more. So from the right-hand vanishing point through that point, we'll come all the way to there. And there we go. So that point right there, that line defines where this box, this room, sits on the ground. And then from here, from that intersection, we can go to the left vanishing point with the construction line. And from that intersection to this point right here represents the left-hand wall and where it rests on the ground. Let me just adjust this so you guys can see it. There we go. So this went from here to there, and from that intersection back towards the left vanishing point to describe the edges where our box is sitting on the ground. Okay, now let's work our way up and around the rest of the form. So from here on our true height line, we can darken this vertical line, and we're going to come all the way up to this line, which represents the height of the roof. And then from that line, we can project from the right vanishing point through the top edge there, and we need to come all the way to the line described by this outer point. So that would be this one here. And so then from that intersection there, we can go towards the left vanishing point. And now from there to there, and there to there defines the top edge of our box in our room. So we'll go ahead and darken those in so they're a little easier to see. All right, here we go. We have the overall space. Now let's define the opening inside of here. So back at the true height line, this outer edge here, where we brought the ceiling height over here. From that point, we can then project the true ceiling height. So again, back to the right-hand vanishing point, and then we're going to pass through that intersection there on the true height line. And so that defines the height of our ceiling. And the ceiling doesn't go all the way to the outside line. It starts with the interior. So it's from that intersection all the way to this intersection here. Defines our ceiling. And then for the floor, again, we brought the floor height over here. And when that floor line meets the true height line, this outer edge, we can use that intersection. If we want to pass through that intersection from the right-hand vanishing point, be sure to let these line up precisely. And that allows us to locate our ground line here. Now I'm going to leave this, I'm not going to darken this quite yet because we're going to have to get these steps in there soon. So I don't want to darken that quite yet, but we could maybe darken the left-hand side of it a bit just to help us know that it's a keeper. And then we could go ahead and get the vertical here. All right, and while we're at it, we'll go ahead and darken this a bit just to make it not a construction line. Okay, so now we have a volume of space, and we need to place the door at the back and the window on the side. So if we adjust a bit for that, so you guys can see, let's start by defining where the floors or the walls meet the floor and the ceiling to just finish out the interior of the space. To find those, we already have these intersections where the walls and ceiling and walls and floors meet at the edges, so we can begin at those intersections. Let's go ahead and darken this line just a bit. And from those intersections, we can go towards, from this one, if we're going back in space, towards the left-hand vanishing point. That will describe where the floor meets the right wall. And from here, we'll go also towards the left vanishing point. That will describe where that right-hand wall meets the ceiling. And now we just need to know where to stop it vertically. So all of our vertical lines follow the same process. We draw a line from the station point to the spot in the floor plan that we're trying to locate. And then where that line crosses the picture plane, we project it down vertically. And so that line there, where it meets these two, is the point that represents the top left-hand corner of the right side wall. So we'll darken those up just a bit to kind of a medium line weight so that they stand out against the construction lines. A lot of perspective drawing is just connecting the dots. Alright, I'm not going to darken that one all the way because I'm going to leave some room for the steps in that area. So that is the right-hand wall. Now that we have it located, we can start from the right-hand vanishing point, pass through the top corner there, and we can use that vector to define the back wall of the space. Once those are defined, we can darken them a bit. There we go. Okay, so now with this space more fully defined, let's locate the door and window, and then we'll finish up with the steps. Okay, the height of the door and window is projected over from the elevation to the true height line, which is this outer edge. So from that point, we can project that height around the surface where we need it, where it's currently located, to the places where we need to project that height. So in order to come across this front surface, we have to come up around before we turn back around the wall. So from the right-hand vanishing point, we pass through that location, and then we stop there. And then we use that intersection to turn back towards the left vanishing point. We come back to the back of this wall, and then from there we switch back to the right-hand vanishing point. to go there. And so that height of 8 feet above the finished floor has been projected from there across that little thickness of the wall, back to the back of the room, and then across. Now, all we've got to do is find the, well, let's go ahead and find the windowsill, and then we'll get the verticals in there. The windowsill is projected over from the elevation to our true height line there. So again, to come across the thickness of that wall, we will start with the right-hand vanishing point. We'll pass through that line. And then once we get across the thickness, we'll pause, we'll reset to the left vanishing point, and then continue back. Now that will describe the sill of the window. So let's get in, and as you can see, it starts to get confusing with all the little lines. You just have to be careful. Okay, so let's find the two verticals of our window. As always, to find verticals, we go from the station point to that spot on the plan, and then we're hunting for the intersections with the picture plane. I'm going to get both the inner and outer edge of this window, because we'll see both sides from this perspective, and we'll get that interface of the window as well. So those points, 1, 2, and 3, we need to project those down vertically. Switch to a big triangle here. A variety of tools definitely helps in drafting. So we'll bring that down vertically, and then we'll be very careful and precise to bring these two down vertically. There we go. Okay, so then we have all of the geometry, if we can pick it out, among these lines to complete the window. So we'll start by describing the interior face of the window. So that it is from this intersection to that one, to that one, to that one. So let's just connect those dots real quick with some medium weight lines. Those are perfectly vertical. Again, the only options you have in terms of line directions are vertical or towards the vanishing points in a 2-point perspective. In a 1-point perspective, the only options you have are horizontal, vertical, or to the one vanishing point. So there is the interior face of our window. Before we describe this vertical thickness, we need to project the depth in this bottom left and top left corner. So for that, moving in that direction, we'll use the right-hand vanishing point, and we will darken that line just the little distance to represent the thickness of the wall. Same thing there. And then we will darken this vertical line to show the thickness. And then from the intersections of that line we just drew, we can use the left-hand vanishing point to complete the sill there, and to complete the head of the window there. And now we have our window described accurately in plan and elevation. Now let's go find the door. So we need to find the vertical lines. We already have the height located here. So to get the vertical edges, we go from the station point to those spots in the plan. We'll see the thickness of this door on that side. We won't see it on the left-hand side. There we go. And then we are going to project those intersections down vertically. One, two, and 3. Okay, so we have the head here and the sides there. So let's go ahead and convert those to a medium line weight to begin to describe the door. And again, we will see just a sliver of that door head and threshold sill. So that means we really need to get rid of a little bit of that line. These are things you can keep in mind when you do the final on Bristol. This kind of stuff for your building of choice. So from that line there, we will go towards the left vanishing point. Then we will go vertical. Well, let's not go vertical quite yet because we don't know where to stop it. Let's go from that intersection towards the left vanishing point, and we're only going to that second little line there. So just enough to represent the thickness of the wall, and then from there we can add the vertical line to represent the thickness of the wall. And then from this intersection at the top left of that sliver of a rectangle, we can, not the left vanishing point here, we're projecting from the right vanishing point. And again, from the right vanishing point, we will project along this line here to describe the threshold of that door. So we have our window and our door described accurately in perspective. Last bit is going to be the steps. So let's transfer over the horizontal location of our steps to the true height line. Get some construction lines. So there we have those placed there and there. They're extra light here because steps, as you know from the Axon, translating steps gets tricky in small, tight little spaces. So, but the rules apply just like finding the floor. We use the station point to get the verticals, and we project from the true height line to get the horizontal lines in plane. So let's start by defining this front edge, and then we'll come up to define the plinth of the floor. So we have this lower step projected over to that intersection right there. I'm going to start from the right-hand vanishing point. I'm going to go through that point to define the lower edge of the step. And so that intersection will be right about there. And then we need to figure out where it ends over here. So to find that vertical line, we go from the station point to that point in the plan that we're trying to locate. But we don't stop there. We have to go all the way to the picture plane because we're trying to translate that intersection with the picture plane down to our perspective drawing. So it was through there, so it's that one. Again, be really careful to keep track of which is which. There is that line. There's that intersection with the lower step, and there's the intersection with the front edge. So we can connect those dots. And I'm drawing the dots here to make the demonstration a little bit clearer. I would recommend that you not draw the dots, just start and stop the line in the appropriate spots, because the dots can really interfere with the quality of your intersections. And we'll define this last little piece here. There we go. Okay, so that is the first little step into the space. If you guys recall, well, you can see it in plan, the window edge and the last step end right in the same spot. So we know that we can project this line of the window straight down to the floor, and that is where our steps will end. So that is kind of a helpful alignment. So that, for those meet, we can draw a line from our right vanishing point through that dot, and that construction line is going to define the back edge of the last step. We do that just a bit darker so you guys can see it. Okay. Now, from this point here, the corner of our floor in this open end of the room, to our left vanishing point, we can strike another construction line, and it's that intersection there that defines the limits of the floor. So we'll go ahead and darken those to more of a medium line weight. And we can complete this edge. So now our floor is complete. We just need to find the zigzag of those steps and the last few lines there. So to do that, to define the horizontal tread of this step, we start at this intersection and go towards the left-hand viewport. I'm not going to set the line all the way because we don't need it way back there, but that defines the edge there. To find the vertical, just like any vertical, you go from the station point to that point on your plan, and where that line crosses the picture plane, we project down vertically. And so that gives us our middle step location. And so now we can darken that a bit. Well, not quite yet. We need to figure out where it stops. So to figure out where that line stops, we've got to come back and bring this height to here from the elevation. We've already projected it over to the true height line. And now from that true height line, we need to bring that height around this wall here. So we translate it there, and then we're going towards the left-hand viewport to go back along the wall. And we can translate that there. So now we have we know our step ends there, goes back that far, goes up that far, back that far, and up that far. And so if it's hard to follow those little intersections, it'll be a little easier when you can look closer yourself. But just to help you see it, I will darken those into more of a medium to light line weight, since this is a solid edge. That one's right back towards the vanishing point. This one is perfectly vertical. All right. And then we can, from the right-hand vanishing point, we can simply translate those lines until they disappear behind the plinth of the floor. And there we go. We have defined this little space in a 2-point perspective. Again, last thing we want to do every time is darken in to add the line weights that we need. So that's going to be this drawing, definitely at the perimeter outline, and then any lines that define space beyond. So we have the overall outline thickened there, and then we can go ahead and add a little depth at the openings. And that is because they define space beyond. And the lighter lines just define creases in the geometry, as opposed to depth of space. I might give this little stair plinth just a bit more weight, since there is space behind it. And there we have our 2-point perspective. Actually, I'm going to give one more line, just a little bit of weight, this edge here, that defines some space behind it. That is 2-point constructed perspective. Good luck with yours. Leave plenty of time for this. It gets complicated, and you will make mistakes. So definitely practice on trace. Show your professors during class when you think you've got it right before you start on the final. Start early, and good luck.